and welcome to this episode of the Selling Through Partnering Skills podcast, where I am delighted to be joined by Lee Seltz. Now, Lee is a best-selling author. He's written 6 books, including Sales Differentiation and Higher Right, Higher Profits. But just recently, he's launched the 6th, which is Sell Different. And so this is all about strategies to outsmart, outmaneuver, and outsell competition, which is exactly what I'm sure we all want to learn about. So Lee, welcome.
Thank you so much, Fred. I appreciate it.
6 books, sir. 6.
6 books.
My second's coming out soon, but 6. So it's like, wow, that's really cool.
Hey, you know what? It's an accomplishment to write one. So many people have a book in their head and they never actually do it. So having one is just an amazing accomplishment.
And then once you hit the flow, you're going to tell me that the others are just going to, they'll flow, yeah.
You know, it's funny. There's a question that I'm commonly asked, and be prepared for this since you have a second book coming out. People say, so what's your favorite? And that's like asking which of your children is your favorite. I mean, you know, the labor that's involved. But with Sell Different, I actually have an answer to that. And Sell Different is my favorite. And I'll tell you why. In the editing process, my mother, who's retired now, but she was an educational evaluator in the New York City school system. She was involved in the editing. My wife was involved in the editing as well. My daughter was in charge of all the social media for the book launch. And then I had my sons involved when I was packaging up kits for the pre-launch as well. So this was a true family affair, and that really made it special. As a matter of fact, in the book itself, when I tell stories and I use names, those are all cousins in the family.
That is so cool. And what is also cool, I've just made a note of, is I'm going to clip this bit of the interview out and send it to my family for the help I'm about to need. So thank you for that. So you've already
yes, you definitely need everybody.
You've already helped me outsmart and outmaneuver my own kid. No, that's brilliant. But I mean, 2 of these books are around sales differentiation. So I mean, what's so important about that? Why are you so interested in it?
Well, you know, it comes back to really what first intrigued me by the whole subject. When I was 17 years old, I was living in Marlboro, New Jersey, which is central New Jersey, and I needed a summer job. And we had this friend who came up with this revolutionary idea. Fred, you ready for this idea?
Come on, pen's ready. Come on.
It's transportation of dry cleaning, meaning having someone come to your home, pick up your dirty clothes, and return them clean. Now, this family friend, his name was Dave, he didn't own a dry cleaning store. He just had this idea of it's a hardship to go to and fro. So maybe we could put together a transportation service. And my summer job was as his driver. So very quickly I was intrigued by the idea, and I was wondering, would people pay more for this service? Because again, this is my summer job. I needed cash. And very quickly I got the answer. And Fred, this is back in 1986. This is not today, 1986. I'm showing my age a little bit. What do you think? Were people willing to pay more for that service?
Well, we well know for the last 18 months, people are paying handsomely for any kind of service like that. So, yeah, but that's why I was 1986.
1986. Were people willing to pay more for that service?
Yes, I think they would have been.
The answer was some people.
Oh, right.
Some
okay,
people.
Yeah.
Those who work locally or had someone at home that could take the dry cleaning to and fro, they didn't see any value. They thought it was a ridiculous business idea, right? For them, it wasn't worth the price tag. But Marlboro, New Jersey is about 2 hours away from New York City, Manhattan. And a lot of people from Marlboro commuted to New York City. So Fred, 2 hours each way. And I know a lot of, my father did, a lot of people in our town did that. And for them, this was a godsend. It was like, oh my gosh, because 1986, Fred, we didn't dress like you and I dress now. Everybody wore a business suit.
Yeah.
So for them, this was golden. So at 17 years old, I learned 3 really important lessons that are valid today. And I talk about them in both books. The first one is that price is not the primary decision factor when people are buying. They're willing to pay more for what is meaningful value. So often we talk about just positioning value. You need to put the wrapper of meaningful, and meaningful is different to each individual. The second was knowing your audience. In other words, you have to identify who perceive meaningful value in what you're selling. And so often I find salespeople don't have that clarity. So they chase deals and they say they lost due to price. My question is, were you even in the game? So for example, if you were trying to sell to people who worked locally or had someone at home that could take the dry cleaning to and fro, you didn't lose that deal. You shouldn't have been wasting your time on it. Now, Fred, does this audience like free things?
Oh, don't we all like free? Well,
we do, don't we?
Free valuable things, and I'm suspecting that gives a valuable thing.
Well, Fred, I come bearing gifts. If you go to targetclientprofile.com, targetclientprofile.com, you can download a free template that will help you have clarity on who will see meaningful value in what you're selling. Now, you notice I say target client, not ideal client, which is the common expression, but I don't use that as a synonym. I'm not saying, oh, I just want to name it something else. In my mind, when we talk about ideal client, this is, if all the stars were to align, this is the kind of business that we want. Target client is, this is the type of business to pursue all day long, because this is who's going to see meaningful value in what you're selling. So once you download that template, that'll help you have the clarity you need when you're selling. And the third takeaway that I got from this was know your differentiators. I talked about meaningful value, which is positioning those meaningful differentiators, and the responsibility, the obligation in helping others across the desk see meaningful value is on our shoulders in sales. We have to do that. So I became intrigued at age 17 in this whole conversation of differentiation, but I've never been more excited about it, more passionate about it than I am at age 52. Whoop, did I just say my age? Yeah, 52 years old.
52, yet still a competitive powerlifter.
I am.
I understand. Yeah, and haven't you just won something?
I have. So I was coming back from a pretty serious injury. A few years ago, I was training for competition. I compete in the bench press. And New Year's Eve day, so December 31st, I'm having a great workout. I'm on track to set a record. And all of a sudden, my left tricep ruptures. Imagine, Fred, a giant rubber band just going pop.
Do I have to?
Right?
Oh.
And it was amazing. Even though I'd never done it before, I knew what I did.
Yeah.
Drove myself to the emergency room. Remember, this is New Year's Eve day.
Drove yourself?
I drove myself.
What on?
And called my wife from the emergency room saying, I just ruptured my tricep. Again, no doctor had told me that. I just knew.
Yeah.
So not a lot of people working in a medical facility on New Year's Eve day. So I wasn't able to get an MRI, just an X-ray. And the first, you're not seeing anyone, everything's closed. And then on the second, I had to get on a plane and do a 3-day sales differentiation workshop. And while I did this, my entire arm, from my fingertips to my shoulder, turned purple. Come to find out, that's par for the course. Wish they had told me that. So finally, I come to the doctor, and the doctor says, your powerlifting days are over. No. Fred, I've been working out since around the same time as that dry cleaning store, around 1986. And this doctor is telling me I'm done forever. And all you have to do is tell me something that I can't do. And Fred, I'm going to find a way to do it.
Oh, I love it.
So I worked my way back, and a few months ago, I competed in the state competition, and I won both my age and the open class for my weight in the bench press.
Respect, sir. A lot of respect.
Thank you.
That.
Thank
you. I love the stubbornness as well. That's fantastic.
Absolutely. Tell me I can't do it. I'm going to prove you wrong.
Quite often, we'll draw analogies between salespeople and sort of sports and elite sports people. And I know that you do that quite often. It's understandable why. So why do you think we like that so much? Why does that analogy work?
Well, it works and it doesn't work. So there's a lot of commonalities between salespeople and professional athletes, right? The level of competition and all that. But there's one difference that almost completely invalidates the comparison, Fred. We shouldn't even be comparing them, right? If you think about what an athlete does, professional athletes work countless hours, days, weeks, months, years, perfecting their craft because they know when they're in the moment of competition, there's no thinking. The body just has to perform flawlessly. They can't think. Muscle memory has to take over. But if you think about what salespeople do, most of them, they play the game over and over again, hoping to be better. How many salespeople have you come across, Fred, that work on the game? Work on their skills outside the game? Very few.
Yeah.
Right?
They take lead after lead. When you ask me.
Right? They take lead after lead, hoping to improve, right? To the peril of the company, because now if they're inept at positioning the value the company represents, good luck to that next person trying to get in the door because they already have a perception of what the company does. So they're meeting after meeting, hoping to be better. And if you think about that in contrast to the professional athlete, it's inconsistent, it's incongruent.
Yeah.
So in my mind, it almost completely invalidates that contrast. And the question I ask salespeople, because we like to talk about sales as a profession.
Yeah.
And I'll say, have you earned the right to be referred to as a professional salesperson? And if you're listening to this podcast, you certainly have taken steps to do that. But if you aren't doing those things where you question every day, what can I do today to be better tomorrow? Every single day, what can I do today to be a more effective, a better salesperson tomorrow? If we aren't doing that, don't refer to yourself as a professional salesperson because you're not. You're a salesperson. You've got to earn professional.
I'm with you 100% on this. I think people like the idea because we talk about elite performance, but it's okay. So act like an elite performer, even to the point of, I know from some rugby background, Monday's the hardest day because Monday you look at the game and that was good, fine. Let's look at the things which weren't so good. I mean, that's tough.
Right.
And then anyway, that's just learning on Monday because next Saturday we're playing a different team completely and we've got to rewrite a game plan and we've got to prep for that and we've got to get ourselves sorted to do a good job then. So almost what we've done before ain't so important, And there's another big thing that in sport you try to win at the expense of someone else.
That is very true.
And I think if that's our sales mentality, then we probably shouldn't be. Well, probably we shouldn't be in the professional.
Well, it's true, right? I mean, we think when we're competing in sports, we have to defeat the competitor, right? If that's your approach when you're selling, don't tell me you build relationships. Don't tell me you build partnerships. If your mindset is, I've got to win, that doesn't work. They don't go together. I talk about one of the most common expressions, overcoming objections, right? We teach salespeople to overcome objections. So here's what we're going to do, Fred. We're going to put on our boxing gloves. We're going to duke this out. You're buying or you're crying. And then we're going to expect a hug afterwards. That isn't happening. Not happening.
But that's in the same module as closing. And I think you've also got a bit of an issue with that.
You want to get me going on that, don't you?
I do, because I share it so we can have a little rant together and leave the listeners to whatever they want to do. Go on, talk to me about closing and where you've got a problem with it.
I fundamentally despise the word. And I don't use that very often. I hate it. I hate it for so many reasons, right? Salespeople, you say you're client-centric. Let me tell you, no one woke up this morning and said, I hope somebody closes me today. No one did that. Right? And here's another issue. It communicates the wrong message to salespeople. Closed implies it's the end. It's not the end. It's the beginning of what's hopefully a long-term fruitful relationship. Right? So this leads to a conversation around what I call the business developer's mantra. And top salespeople subscribe to this. You ready, Fred?
Go.
Every deal must yield two more. Every deal must yield two more. So if you embrace that, you don't see selling through the lens of closing, but rather it's the next step in a business relationship because there's referrals, there's upsells, there's cross-sells, right? We need them to serve as references. There's so much more to be had. And if we see it through the lens of closing, we've just ended it and we're really scared because now the pipeline's barren. All right, this deal came out the other side. Good news, I get a commission check, but now there's nothing else there. Well, we use every deal as the building blocks for more. Every deal must yield two more. And if you have that mindset, you'll always have a compounding effect on your sales, because you bring in one sale today, that gets you two, and that becomes four, and on and on and on. And imagine that impact on your income.
Yeah, no, the same. I hear closing, and I think in pictures. Okay, I can't help going back to Gordon Gekko. Greed is good. It goes all 80s. I see massive brick phones. I feel no. And as you say, then all right. So we've learned the 74 closing techniques. Yeah, now let's get on to handling objections. And how do we wrestle the customer to the ground and put them in a headlock until we've closed them, and we go back to massive adulation don't. It's fun.
Then we say we build relationships, right, Fred?
I don't know why we're laughing, because it's actually not funny. But maybe
scary.
It's because the people we work with don't think like that, or certainly shouldn't be by the time we work with them. But
Fred, there's another aspect of this closing. I get these calls, I'm sure you do as well, from executives saying, my salespeople have a major problem. And I say, what's that problem? And they say, closing. My salespeople can't close. Do you get those calls, Fred?
I had one last week.
I'm sure. And you'll have one today and tomorrow too.
Hope so.
and I'll say to them, I was like, what do you mean? Are you saying they're unable to ask for the order? And they'll go, no, that's not the problem. Then what is the problem? And then the floodgates open. Well, my salespeople tell me about deals they're going after and how confident they feel about winning them. They get to the final stage of the new client acquisition process, and the deal unravels. The expression today is ghosting. Some just stop responding to them, or a litany of concerns, objections, stalls come up and the deals go nowhere. And then the ones that we do win, we're having to drop prices to levels that just aren't acceptable. So all of that can be summed up as we have a closing problem. And then I correct them. It's like, well, everything you've told me, you don't have a closing problem. And like, of course I do. No. Closing is a symptom of the actual issue you're experiencing. Well, then what's the real issue? It's discovery. It's in discovery. Because if you think about what happens during discovery, that's when we capture key information, right? We're asking questions, thoughtful, insightful questions. That's when we share meaningful information. That's when we position our meaningful differentiators. And so weak discovery rears its ugly head when you get to that finish line, and it shows there are real issues in the overall selling system. So when you look at that finish line, you say, we're not converting at the ratio we expect. You can't fix the finish line. That's not your problem in most cases. It's take it back to the starting line. How are we handling discovery? And in chapter 7 of Sell Different, I actually lay out a step-by-step plan for a salesperson to do it on their own, or a company to take steps to formalize a structured discovery program, which will lead to higher conversion rates at the end.
What you just said there, that sounds like a must-read chapter. Well, it's all must-read, but I've got so many problems with words in sales. Even discovery, I'm starting to rail against a little bit, because some people take it as, I've got to go in there and discover whether it's worthwhile me carrying on with this. Like it's a checklist, it's a shopping list. It's okay, so can you just tell me, have you got any budget? Okay, are you in charge? Right. And do you actually need this? Can you tell me, do you need it? Yeah, and when do you need it by, if you do? Right, okay, good. Right, I've discovered that. So let me tell you about my things. It's like, yes. Whoa, what you said, share meaningful information, yes. Position what you can do in relation to them. It's chalk and cheese again,
Well, let's talk about one element, right? Salespeople love to talk. And here's a big question that I love to ask them. So we talk about the discovery meeting. By the way, one of the corrections I make, and I'm sure you see this too, salespeople actually tell prospects about discovery meetings. Hey, let's schedule a discovery meeting. What you just said is, hi, I'm going to put you through a sales meeting. No one looks forward to that. That's for us. We don't use discovery externally. But the big question I ask salespeople, because they love to talk so much, and they say, well, we got to tell them about this. We got to tell them about that. I had this conversation the other day with a group. And if I were to take all the notes that we captured of all the things we needed to tell them, it would take me about a week and a half to tell them all this information. And as you know, most meetings are not a week and a half long. So the question is this: what do you want to tell them versus what do you want them to remember? And those aren't synonyms. What do you want them to remember? See, you may have this 1 hour meeting and you say to yourself, you come out, well, I told them about this. I told them about that. We're all excited. We tell our manager, I told them about this differentiator. I told them about this. And I'd love to ask this question. What if I came along behind you, made a phone call to that person, and I said, you just met with Fred for an hour. Share with me what you remember from that 1 hour meeting. If I asked them that right after the meeting, how much of what you shared with them do you think they'd be able to tell me? Fred, what would you guess that percentage is relative to what you told them?
They're probably like trying to deliberately forget your name, aren't they? They're not going to remember very much.
Not very much.
Yeah,
now give it a day. Give it 3 days. Give it a week. How much do they actually remember? So as you know, from the speaking world, there's the rule of 3.
Yeah.
Right. So when we're sharing information, we want to do it in the context of 3 key themes. And we say to ourselves, if someone were to come along after this meeting and interview them and say, what do you remember about this particular opportunity? They'd recite those 3 things. So we can't just throw information at them and expect them to remember it. It has to be in terms of 3 themes that you're trying to convey, and that becomes memorable.
Yeah. So I'm like now toying whether to ask you this question or not, but I'm like, what, 3,000-4,000 miles away? So I think I'm
go ahead.
It's like, so we know that asking questions is a really good way to stimulate people's thinking, and then they'll remember stuff more and they work it out for themselves.
Okay.
So your opinion on, could you tell me your biggest pain point? Here, end of the podcast. Sorry, listeners, we were getting on so well till then.
I'm glad you're far away, because you and I be duking it out on that one, Fred.
If you're not watching this, Lee literally just put his head in his hands and banged his head on the desk.
And Lee is now crying.
Weeping in the corner.
Oh my good. I mean, again, that's I call that a kitchen item, just like Discover. That's for us. And asking people, what are your pain points today? Now, it's interesting. I just had a coaching session this morning with a client, and it's a takeaway business edit, meaning they're not trying to create demand for their product. They're trying to take it away from the competition.
Mm-hmm.
And more often than not, when I say more often, like 95% of the time, for this service, there is no pain. The competitor is doing it flawlessly. And what I'm talking about is a trash service. You know, the trash comes, they pick it up, take it away, you get an invoice at the end of the month. Very few issues with that, at least perceived ones. But there's a game that's played in the trash industry, particularly in Minnesota, where you think you're paying a particular fee because that's what they tell you a service charge. And then there's all these fees at the bottom. And you just think that's just the way the business works. And you don't even pay attention to that. You think everybody has those same fees. And that's where you're mistaken. So this client of mine doesn't charge all those fees. They have a higher service charge than the competitors. But when you add the fees up that the competitors are charging, they're usually about 30% lower. So one of the coaching aspects that I talked about with the salesperson is, because he talked about, so I got to ask about pain. I said, well, how many sales calls did you go on with other salespeople? He said about 20. I said, how many of them did you hear about a pain point? And he thinks, he goes, there might have been one. Right, because you're in an industry where the service is pretty much commodity. It's going to be done flawlessly. And so what's the only conversation someone's willing to have? Price. Well, you've got a great story to tell there, because in your case, they think they're getting the sweet deal because what they've been told around a service fee. In reality, your invoice is less. So the question that we worked on together was, what's important to you? The price or the invoice? Because in this industry, those are 2 completely different things. Now there's a conversation. What do you mean? And we created a nice visual so he can show how this works in this industry. But if he came in asking a question like, what are your pain points? They go, I don't have any pain points. It's trash.
What does it actually even mean, unless you've been on the sales course? It doesn't mean much. I had quite a big argument with someone about that the other day.
It doesn't mean anything. Exactly.
But
Pain points. My elbow's bothering me. Can you help me with that?
Yeah. No, but what worried me, they've been coached to use that language. I was like, look, I'll talk about pain in training. I will, but then we've got to wrap it up way more elegantly. You know, we're supposed to be good communicators here.
Absolutely.
We're supposed to ask great questions, but I'm having such fun asking these Mickey Mouse ones.
Well,
I'm not trying to wind you up at all, Lee, but
no, you got me going now. You got me going, Fred.
I've got an even better one I've just thought of. I've got to use it. Please, can I use it? Take a deep breath, mate, because I want to ask it. I want to ask it.
All right, Fred.
What's all this about cold calling being dead? And if you're not watching this, go look at it on YouTube, because Lee nearly spat his drink out at that stage.
I just had the biggest eye roll. I just had the biggest eye roll that you could ever imagine. I think my eyes are now stuck in my head. You know, you of course have heard that. I've heard that. And there's this well-respected group, the Rain Group, that actually studied this topic. And they went to executives and they asked them if they had ever taken a meeting from a salesperson who had reached out to them through some type of prospecting. And I'll ask audiences of salespeople, what percentage of executives said, yes, I've taken a meeting with a salesperson who reached out to me through prospecting? And Fred, what do you think the salespeople guess that number is?
So I looked at that this morning, funny enough. Yeah, I'm sorry, the sales, I know the answer to the execs. The salespeople, I didn't. It's the sales is very low. They say, oh, nobody does. Zero. Less than zero.
They try to go less than zero.
Some people voted negatively.
Well, this study revealed 82%, better than 4 out of 5 said, yes, I took a meeting with a salesperson who'd reached out through some type of prospecting.
Right.
But they went a step further. They figured out the key ingredient to being the salesperson that got the meeting with that executive. And that key ingredient was personalization. Yeah. So if your outreach is entirely generic emails, generic voicemails, generic conversations when you reach them live, and you talk about closing and discovery and pain points, you aren't getting that meeting. So personalization is the key here if you're going to be in that 4 out of 5 situation.
Can we define personalization? Because some people, I believe, misinterpret this. So again, now we're serious. I know prospecting is a big deal for you, and you talk a hell of a lot about this. So personalization, that's key. But what do you mean by that?
No, it's a great question. So in the book Sales Differentiation, I talk about this concept called the sales crime theory. And it sounds like this. Imagine it's 2 a.m. and there's a pounding on your front door. It's the police. They want to have a conversation with you about a crime that's recently been committed. Now, they don't randomly pick you and your home for this conversation. They followed a trail of evidence, put together a crime theory, which has given them a reason to have a conversation with you right now. So you can see where I'm going with this, the sales crime theory. Sales crime theory is founded in the answer to this question. Why should they want to have a conversation with you right now? Not why should we talk with them? Why should they want to have a conversation with you right now? So Fred, I'll give you an example. Have this coaching client that sells audiovisual equipment for corporate conference rooms, a very niche business. And I asked him, I said, what types of sales crime theory evidence, if you came across it, would say, they should want to have a conversation with me right now? And he said, well, if there's an expansion, a relocation, an acquisition, maybe a new CIO or CEO getting hired, in those cases, they're probably having a conversation about the technology in the conference room. And since that's what we do, they should want to have a conversation with me right now. And so based on that research, I then, when I have the outreach, I'm talking about the acquisition that they've done. I've talked about the relocation or that new executive coming into the organization. So it's not the sales call of the moment. You know, we like to say that sales is a numbers game. That's another one that gets my eyes rolling. I don't know about you, Fred.
Yeah.
The problem with that is if we only see it through the lens of the numbers game, then we treat people like a number. We treat people like a number, and everyone wants to feel special. I'm not saying that there isn't validity to the numeric side. I believe there is. But if we only see it through that lens, we treat people like numbers, and they don't want to do business with people that make them feel that way.
It's the slippery slope to just using the brute force approach then. And
absolutely.
And brute force and ignorance is those things are put together deliberately, I think. So the reason I really wanted to be clear on the personalization is I think sometimes people hear that and then they think it's about making it about leaders powerlifting, Fred likes rugby, and they make it about that. It's like, well, okay, but that's what I talked to my mates about down the pub, I don't need to talk to you about it. In fact, I'm a member of a rugby club, and we all talk about that there. We know something about it, and you don't, and that's even stupider to come and talk to me about it. It's like, so it's this kind of relevant personalization, relevant to what it is that you're doing, isn't it?
Correct.
That's what we're saying there.
And it shows that you did a little bit of homework. Like when I get one of the things I dread today, another frustration. You're getting all my frustrations out.
That's brilliant. I feel like a counselor on the podcast.
Right. You're making my blood pressure go up today. So, and I'm sure you have this experience too, Fred. So someone has to connect with you on LinkedIn, and you can measure with an egg timer how quickly you're going to get a solicitation. It's like tick, tick, tick. Oh, good. They're asking me to buy something, and they're asking me to buy a benefit plan for my employees. Well, my employees are me, myself, and I. So who are these people that you're suggesting that you're going to help me with? Or I can help you with sales compensation. Really? That's what I do. I received one today. You know the show Shark Tank?
Yeah, we Dragon's Den we call it, but yeah, it's the same thing. Yeah.
Okay, so I got an email today from one of the sharks. Of course, it's a marketing person behind them, offering to have me contribute a chapter to his book so I can become a best-selling author. Okay, I did it 6 times. So why exactly do you think I'm a fit for this?
Tell me you weren't tempted to write back. Oh no, so the price for my advice to help him become a best-selling author is this.
Right, that's what I should write back. So what are you willing to pay me to write this chapter?
Please do that. That's chapter and a coaching package to help you write the book. Oh God, that'd be brilliant. But so you probably do what I do, which is you can see they're going to connect and pitch, but you still accept just to feel angry that you get the pitch, and they go, yeah, whatever, move on.
and you know what? I have tremendous respect for salespeople, and I will reply, no, thank you. I'll give them that pleasant reply. But some knucklehead the other day said, why not?
Have you ever had the one? So you
something...
don't want to be a best-selling author then, or whichever the thing is.
Right.
That kind of, you're so stupid. Like,
this was
that's really not going to move the sale on.
Absolutely. And when I said no, thank you, I was being polite, because if he had taken 2 seconds and read my profile, he would have seen I'm not a fit, like the dry cleaning story, that I had a way to get my clothes to and fro easily. I didn't need this. 2 seconds reading my profile would have told him that.
So funny. So funny. Oh, cool. I feel guilty winding up with these questions, but to be honest, they go on, don't they? And there is sense in the answers. That's what I'm trying to get out of the thing. It's good fun as well. Okay, I've got an eye on the clock. Actually, time's flying. Having so much fun here.
It has flown. Wow.
Right. So this is an important question. Because what you're saying is that 99.9999% of salespeople are missing a massive opportunity. Please tell me you got time to answer that.
I do have time, but I will also tell you that number, I am being ultra conservative. I think the percentage is higher. Okay. So Fred, imagine this. You just had a 1-hour discovery meeting, and it meets all the criteria you've identified for a great discovery meeting. Checks all the boxes. You found challenges and pain points. You didn't say pain points, but you found them, and they're ones that you can address. You position your differentiators, they ate them up. You've got action items, they've got action items, and the deal's so good that you can taste it. And as you leave that meeting, whether it be a Zoom meeting or you're walking back to your car, it plays in your head like your favorite movie. Fred, what's your favorite movie?
I quite like Terminator, actually.
Terminator?
I like
Caddyshack. I'm Caddyshack.
Okay, cool.
So here's the flaw. We think they remember the meeting and all the details just as vividly as we do. It doesn't dawn on us that after our meeting, they had 7 other meetings, 106 emails, 16 voicemail messages, all of it layering on top of our meeting, making it a distant memory. So here's the strategy that over 99.999% of salespeople don't do, and it's send a recap email. The same day as your discovery meeting, and here's what's really neat. I got an email yesterday from someone who read Sell Different, because there's a chapter in the book to teach you how to put this together. He actually forwarded me a recap email that he sent to someone and the accolades that he received back from that prospect. So this recap email has 5 sections in it. Your objectives, what they said they're trying to accomplish, and using their words whenever possible. How we can help. This is your opportunity in writing to position those differentiators that they ate up during your meeting. My to-do list, what I said I'm going to do. Your to-do list, what you said you're going to do, and our agreed upon next steps. And let me tell you why this is so important and so effective. We talked before about not making people feel like a number. There's no CRM that you could possibly be using where this would just spit out for you. You have to write it. It'll take a few minutes to do so. You've made them feel special. You've shown them they're not the sales call of the moment, but rather this is a business where you see the potential relationship. It keeps the deal on track. I mean, Fred, how many times have you had a meeting with someone and then during the follow-up, they were supposed to do some things and you get there and like, oh, that's right, Fred, I'm so sorry. I know I was supposed to do these things. I didn't do them. So the sales cycle gets protracted. We also know, particularly in B2B selling, that multiple people are involved in the decision-making process. Well, you met with one. How do we get the other ones just as excited? Well, you write it in such a way that they can share it with others. They can get up to speed on what you've talked about. And it allows you to stand out from all the other salespeople calling on this individual. Again, you made them feel special. And so in Sell Different, chapter 11, I guide you step by step in how to put this into practice.
Do you give advice for the sales manager that gets this, but whose salespeople are going, oh, but we're too busy for that? And that's the biggest eye roll of all of them for me, which is which bit of your job do you not understand here? But that is a very common, I'm going to use the word objection. To not doing your job properly, basically. So what can we say to people apart from, well, just go and get another job because you don't get it?
Well, first of all, hopefully those sales managers are evaluating effectiveness, not work. And if we're saying, if you buy into this and you say, this is an effective technique that is going to help us to move the needle. And that's what this is all about. All these things we've talked about here today are about moving the needle a little bit. Nothing is going to work 100%, which is why we don't have an expectation of a 100% conversion rate from lead to sale. Notice I didn't say close, I said conversion. It's all about moving the needle a few percentage points. And when you look at the impact by moving a few percentage points, what this happens to do to the entire enterprise, the success of the overall organization is absolutely massive. And so helping the salespeople to see it's all about moving the needle a few percentage points around effectiveness. What happens if we could be more effective in going from the discovery phase to the presentation phase, or from the presentation phase to the proposal phase, or the proposal phase to that finish line? What does that mean to your personal success? What does that mean to your personal income? What does that mean to the overall organization's success? And of course, it multiplies out and is tremendous.
Yeah. We talk quite a lot. I should probably use the same terminology, but it was very popular here around the Olympics 2012, where the British cycling team won loads. And the coach, he said, it was asked why. He said, we aggregate marginal gains. We do tiny little things. I mean, these guys are talking about changing where the seam on the lycra is for the, getting aerospace engineers on the wind resistance. But when you stack these up, it makes the difference. That's what's going to be difference between us winning a gold or not.
Absolutely.
So yeah, if you're going to use these sports analogies, apply the sports best practice. Don't just talk about it and throw the old, oh, you don't make any shots that you don't take type stuff. Oh, look, so cool. Sales effectiveness is where it's at. So
it is.
Well, a brilliant conversation. I've really enjoyed it.
Fred, this has been fun. Time just flew, didn't it?
It has flew.
You gave me a headache. I'll be honest with you. You gave me a headache. I'm going to need to go take something when we're done here.
I do apologize for my poor behavior. Not. Fingers crossed. No. It's been good fun. Sell Different sounds absolutely packed full of good stuff, as are the others. And that's available now. It's available everything. It's hardcover, Kindle, audio. Do you do the audio or?
I did, you did the audio. This was really neat. Did you do an audiobook for your first book?
No, not yet.
Okay. So Sales Differentiation, I was not asked to do the audiobook.
Yeah.
Then I found out that's something you can negotiate in. And if you've ever read my work, I tell stories.
Yeah.
And professional narrator does a nice job, but he's not going to get excited about my stories.
Yeah.
So Sell Different, I am the narrator. As a matter of fact, if you go to selldifferentbook.com, selldifferentbook.com, you can download the first chapter for free if you'd like to read it. And we've just added the first chapter of the audiobook. So if you like to listen, you can hear the first chapter as well.
Brilliant. I mean, it's available on Amazon and everything else. But what I always say to people is if an author's got his own site or the book's got its own site, go there, because there'll be other stuff too.
There is other stuff.
As a matter of fact, the free chapters. Go on, tell us what they are.
There's more. I don't care where you buy the book. Yeah. I don't care where you buy the. If you go to selldifferentbook.com, you'll see there's a video series for 52 weeks. Every week, 52 weeks, you're going to get an email with a link to a video to the Sales Differentiation Minute. And it's going to help you implement what you've read about.
That's stunning. That is so cool. That is so cool. I've only got 25. I was kind of like an advent calendar thing. God, more books than me, more valuable minutes than me.
And Sales Differentiation Minute. They're short, Fred. They're not long videos. They're anywhere from 1 to 3 minutes. Very specific topic with some actual things that you can do to move the needle.
And a really good habit. Again, let's go back. What do top sports people do? Top performers do. They get their mindset right. They reflect at the evening. They'll get their mindset right in the morning. That lands in your inbox. Yeah.
Absolutely.
If I understand what I say, all you got to do is open your inbox, listen to that. First thing you do, your brain is now in gear for getting sales day sorted. Love it, sir. Love it. Thank you so much for your time. If people want to connect with you, LinkedIn, you are also, I mean, you're all about sharing.
LinkedIn's just fine. Just don't try to sell me 2 seconds later, okay? Happy to connect with anybody on LinkedIn.
Give it a day, guys. Give it a day.
And to connect with me or learn more about the book, go to selldifferentbook.com and all the information's right there.
We'll pop that link and the targetclientprofile.com in the chat in the notes anyway. Awesome. Lee, thank you so much for your time. Really kind of you to make it. I've enjoyed it a hell of a lot.
Thank you. I have too.
Take care.